Hey guys, Perry here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Hatebreed, Weight of the False Self, out November 27th on Nuclear Blast. This album has 12 tracks, 35 minutes in length, and this is the band's 8th full-length studio album. It almost seems impossible that this band could release an album where they sound even more pissed off than normal. An album that has more intensity, more aggression, and yet, here I am telling you exactly that. If there's an album where Hatebreed has turned the knob all the way to 11, it's definitely this one. I didn't think it was possible. I honestly felt that they had reached their ceiling as far as intensity and aggression is concerned. Like, how more intense, how more aggressive can you become? But for some reason on this album, I really feel like they're showing us that there's still room for growth as far as those two separate elements are concerned and as far as the band goes. This album has something different. It has an extra step in it. It definitely has an extra kick, an extra punch, and it delivers it across all the different elements: sound, lyrics, and vocals. Now, as far as structure is concerned, this is a very linear, straightforward, easy to digest album. 12 tracks, 35 minutes, it comes at you relentless from the first all the way to the last song. It's not an album that has peaks and valleys, it's just an album that moves straight forward with a lot of intensity and aggression built into it. Having said that, there are some pauses here and there built in within the songs themselves, but even there's some songs within the record that slow things down ever so slightly, almost like giving you a chance to catch your breath before the next onslaught comes on. So those changes are really important, otherwise this album would be absolutely destructive. You need those changes, you need those small pauses within the tracks, within the album itself, within the overall structure, just to give you a sense of a break and then hit you harder, or at least it feels like they're hitting you harder the moment that that break is gone. So this increases the fluidity of the record. It makes the album even more dynamic, more impactful. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, this is a Hatebreed album, so you can expect meaty riffs, and they're there from the beginning all the way to the end. But I felt that they added a little bit more melody on this record, not on every track, but you can see the melody kind of creeping in and out as you move yourself from the first to the last song. And once again, it adds fluidity, it adds dynamic elements to the overall record, to the overall experience of listening to this album. But through and through, this is a very meaty album. Not just the riffs are meaty, but the drums and bass also carry a lot of weight, a lot of heaviness, a lot of intent to their sound. So when you mix those drums, that bass, and those guitars all together, this is an album that has this huge wall of sound coming at you relentlessly, track after track after track after track. Not an album that depends just on the guitars to push the record forward, to push the songs forward, or to increase the intensity or aggression, but really a record that depends on all the different elements to work well together to allow the sound to be more balanced, more decisive, more driven, if you will. The lyrics on this record are really interesting. I felt that this was the album where perhaps they were more current as far as the lyrical content is concerned. Listening to this record, you really feel like you're getting a synopsis of the world around you. So it's not an album that they talk about necessarily hypothetical scenarios or things that happened previous in their lives. I feel like this is one of the more current albums as far as lyrics are concerned for Hatebreed. And I think that's going to have a bigger impact. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why the album feels so angry, so aggressive, so intense, because you can relate to these lyrics as of today, as of right now. You look around you and these lyrics are really expressing everything that you see in your own world. So maybe that's one of the reasons why the album has the impact that it does. Vocally, Jamie Jasta is Jamie Jasta. This is vintage. You're really not going to get anything new. You're just going to get him at his full glory, bringing a lot of intensity, a lot of aggression, and adding that to the overall sound experience that this album has to offer. I really enjoyed the backing vocals. I felt that they used them throughout the record in a very intelligent kind of way that allows this album to almost feel like a live recording. It has that sense. It's an album that's going to work really well in a live setting once they can go out on tour, because the way they constructed the tracks and the way they used the vocals, and the backing vocals especially, adds that vibe. It adds almost this jam session kind of feel to the way the songs are coming across, and allows you as the listener, as you're going through the record, to sing along and be part of those backing vocals. So I really like that dynamic. It really added life, it added depth to the overall structure and sound on the songs. Overall, I wouldn't say that this is their best album to date. I really don't think it's their greatest album, but it's definitely their most consistent record top to bottom. There's really not one song that you can remove from this record in order to make it better, and it's also not an album where you can easily pick the hits or the songs that would be included on a set list. This album is really worth by its length and by its structure and by all the songs that were put together in order to create it. It's really worth for its whole and not necessarily by bits and pieces of the record itself. So it's not their greatest album, but it's not too far from it, and like I said, definitely their most consistent and reliable record top to bottom. As far as songs are concerned, these three were not easy to pick, but outside of the singles, let's start with Let Them All Rot. This is the second song on the album, is an absolute banger, vintage Hatebreed. When I think of Hatebreed and I think of a Hatebreed song, the way this track is put together as far as structure and sound is concerned is exactly what I want out of a Hatebreed track. It has a meaty riff that just grinds you down, and then Jamie Jasta comes in with a tons of aggression, tons of intensity. It adds to that meatiness of the riff. It makes the song feel even bigger, more powerful, heavier. It moves slower in the verses, so it has that grinding effect in the verses, and then it explodes in the chorus. The chorus has so much life in it. The backing vocals in the chorus adds volume, it adds heaviness, it adds presence to how the song is put together. It allows the song to be more memorable overall. The breakdown on this track is vicious. This song in a live setting, once that breakdown hits, is going to be devastating, absolute mayhem. A song that's constructed, that's put together, that it's built thinking of a live performance. Next, Cling to Life. This is one of my favorites, if not my favorite track on this record. It's a song that just has this incredible presence. The riff, the sound, as it starts, it comes out of nowhere and it starts to build almost like danger is approaching, like the truck is getting closer to you and you can see those headlights getting bigger and bigger. That's how this song starts, that's how it feels. It has a great guitar drum combo. Those two elements work extremely well together in order to provide you this devastating overall sound. This track has a lot of resemblances, it has a lot of influences from the New York hardcore scene. When you listen to this track, you really feel like you're listening to a throwback song to the early 90s New York hardcore area. Like you really feel like that's what you're listening to. So there's a little bit of going back into the vault and bringing some older influences into how they constructed this song and how the song sounds. The backing vocals once again adds a lot of power, they add a lot of volume to the overall track, and it really adds that New York hardcore style to it, which they used a lot of those backing vocals in order to give that live sense to the way the songs are coming across. The song moves a little bit slow but heavy. It's a heavy track. It has a lot of volume. It has a lot of presence, a lot of layers. The melody of the guitars, there's a melodic bridge from the guitar going into the solo. That bridge is really important because it starts to change your mindset. At that moment, the song changes dynamics. It becomes a different track. It becomes a lot more melodic. It almost becomes a classic heavy metal song, like Iron Maiden-esque, if you will. And then it moves into the solo, and the solo is a complete classic new wave of British heavy metal style solo that almost doesn't feel like it belongs in the track, but because of the bridge, the guitar bridge before it, it allows this solo to work extremely well. Without that bridge, the track would feel broken and that solo wouldn't belong there. But that bridge really unified what came before, and it helped you get to the solo and be mesmerized by the sound that it has, by the presence that it has. Once the solo is over, the track goes back to how it started. It goes back to that meat grinder style track, and it just blows you away. It just returns to the origins, and it's an absolute banger of a track. It's a track that's just devastating when it's moving slowly and heavy, and still packs a ton of melody in it. It really changes your direction as you progress through it. If I showed you the solo and I showed you the beginning of the track, you didn't think that these two would go together. Last but not least, The Stroke of Red. Heavy track, but still with some melody present in it. I felt that there was some thrash metal influences when I was listening to this song, and those thrash metal influences are really represented in how melodic the guitars are at portions. The melody doesn't stay throughout the track, it's not always there as a layer in the background, but it does work as it transitions from the verses into the chorus, so it allows that transition to be a little bit smoother, a little bit more melodic, and it changes a little bit of the perception that you will have of this song. It still sounds heavy, still feels heavy. all the way through, but that melody really changes a little bit of how you perceive this song and how this song comes at you. It makes the track more dynamic, it makes the track more fluid, and it takes nothing away from how heavy and how powerful the song is. This is it, guys. This is Hatebreed with Weight of the False Self. Once again, out November 27th on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.